So this week we're going to talk about personnel management. This is going to be part one. There'll be two parts. The first part is really going to be about hiring, and the second week after spring break will be about firing. I'm sorry, this will air after spring break, but there'll still be two parts, a hiring and a firing. So this week we're going to look at personnel policies related to hiring and also to training or onboarding or orientation, probation. There's a lot of different ways to describe how you bring somebody on when you first hire them. Then we're also going to look at policies and procedures for new and established employees, training, and then the employee handbook and personnel file. And then the very last part will be some licensing regulations required for your personnel file, and then working with volunteers as well. So why is hiring and recruitment important? So I talk incessantly about your quality or your vision for your program. And so you can increase the quality of your program by recruiting quality staff members. Your school's really only as good as your weakest link or your most challenged employee or challenging to you employee. So it's really difficult to raise the quality of the education that you provide if the people who are providing the education don't know what they're doing. So we need to hire staff that aligns with your vision of education. So you wouldn't hire somebody who believes strongly in academic programs if you are Reggio, and vice versa. Or if you do hire somebody and you hire them for specific characteristics that you are looking for, but maybe they entirely don't know about your specific philosophy, then you're going to have to spend more time. So let's say you're hiring at your FCC provider, you want to go from a small family home to a large family home. And you're a project-based FCC. So maybe you've hired somebody that used to work as an infant toddler just in like a discovery aisle that maybe doesn't have a strong philosophy and project-based approach. But you really like her characteristics. She's funny, she's got great customer service, she works really well with lots of different age groups. So you go ahead and you decide that you're going to hire her. That's fantastic, but you're probably going to spend some extra time making sure that she attends. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Attends work or attends classes on Reggio and project-based approach so that she can better fit in with your ideals of education. So that's why it's important, and I'll talk more about hiring being a two-way street. All right, so hiring and recruitment procedures. Really what you're doing is you're identifying the need in your program. Do you need a teacher? Do you need a janitor? What are the details of the need? Is there a specific hour, specific schedule, specific education permit levels that you need? You need to write a really good job description. You need to advertise by having a blurb about your program and the position that you hire. You need to screen, and we'll talk more about why this is important from a personnel kind of standpoint when I get to it. We'll interview and also talk about equal opportunity and accommodation and things like that that are also really important when you interview. You need to evaluate all the people. You typically can kind of divide them into there's no way I would ever hire you, or you have a good shot at getting this job. And then once you kind of look in that pile of you have a good shot, finding what the best fit for the need that you have is. Then you want to notify them. Then you're going to hire with a very specific job contract. And then you're in probation, on client probation, but you're giving them orientation, you're training, and then you're checking in supervising as well. Not every program has a probationary period, but there is this period of onboarding, probation, orientation, that type of thing. So we'll talk about that being really important to personnel after you actually hire somebody. So what is identifying the need of your program? I use this in my 155, but I think it's a pretty good example of what a lot of programs have to do, which is meet a variety of different needs. So you need a teacher and you need a bus driver. And I think it's great that our programs are being more accommodating to elementary schools having much less hours, and parents do need to work. Not every family, especially if they're kindergarten or first grade, cannot get them into those on campus after school programs. They're typically for older children, are at-risk children, or underserved children. So if you are a regular lower middle class or even lower class person who's not eligible for those programs, how are you going to meet the needs of your job and education for your child? So I see a lot of discovery aisles. That's the one that I might have. But there's a lot of different kind of corporate programs or larger programs that are now meeting that need by having the children be dropped off, then taking them to the school and picking them up. So they're doing that they're bridging that need for a lot of families. I think that's really important. So if your program is trying to do that, would be an example. So you're looking at the position, you want somebody who can teach and who can also drive a bus. It's a specific kind of license that you need in order to be a bus driver. So this one would be part-time, but you would provide benefits after 3 months, so after a probationary period. So you would then, I don't know why that's doing that. So then you would do 6:30 to 8:30 and then 2 to 5. So it would be a split position. This would be great for somebody who's going to school at Palomar and Cal State and can take classes in the middle of the day, or maybe somebody who just has an alternative schedule, or some people really like splits. My husband is one of them. He likes untraditional schedules because he can go and do errands in the middle of the day, or he'll work weekends so he can be off during the week, that type of thing. This is great as well for people who surf, rock climb, have kind of alternative hobbies as well. Rate of pay, so it's going to be a little bit, but you'll get more once you actually get benefits, and then you'll also be eligible for educational reimbursement. Maybe we want you to go ahead and get your license. So all I'm really looking forward with essential responsibilities. So you, first of all, need to be aware of are you Title V, are you Title 22? Are you state funded or not? What are your permit requirements that you have to fulfill for the state? That would be really important. That would be your number one essential responsibility. But then you also need to think, what is the most important thing that I need from this person? Because that's going to be part of your job description and your job contract. So she's got to have 12 units. She needs to have at least 6 months experience working with school age and has the specific license that I need in order to drive the bus, and has been driving a bus for at least 1 year. There are little babies in our class, they're very small children on these buses, or even possibly babies if you were taking them somewhere. So somebody who really knows how to drive is going to be really important to me. Okay, so attract quality staff, write a specific job description. So the teacher and bus driver will supervise children before and after school and on bus ride to and from school daily. They will provide quality enrichment activities for school-age children before and after school. So this is your morning teacher and your afternoon teacher, and she also takes the children to the bus. So the school age is kind of her jam. That's where she's going to be most of the time. Her key responsibilities: supervise children on bus, supervise children before and after school, communicate with parents, plan daily lesson plans. Most of ours look like that. I mean, there's not a lot of creativity, but if you wanted to take out daily lesson plans and you wanted to add something that was more important to you, that would be fine. Supervision should be a number one key responsibility on both your job description and your job contract. Obviously, that is the most important thing, that we're adequately supervising children so that we are not getting hit by licensing. So we also have some abilities too. So this is kind of the whipped cream, the cherry on top. So we have these key responsibilities, but we also want you to work well with children, communicate effectively with other teachers and parents, be able to work part of a team, work with school officials and supervisors. She's a before and after school person. She's going to see the school every day. She's going to see the teachers who take the children into her bus. So being able to work well with them is going to be really important as well. So knowledge of child development, positive behavior techniques. This is where you would want to kind of talk about some key, some specific characteristics that you kind of want. Like if you're Reggio or something like that, that's where you would do it. Because I'm looking at a school-age person, social and emotional development of school-age children is going to be really important. Knowing about clicking and having small groups of friends and clubs and ways to work with children at this age, because it's a very different age group than infants and toddlers. If I was looking for an infant and toddler teacher, I would probably put information about developmentally appropriate practice, TV, all those types of things that our little infants do. She needs to have specific knowledge of. Minimum qualifications: a high school diploma or a GED, 12 units in child development with a C average or higher, and then that specific driving license, and then experience driving a commercial vehicle. I put that many times because that would be a really important thing. You could personally make the decision. Maybe they hit all the other boxes, but they don't have the Class C. If she was willing to go out ahead and get it, that would be up to you guys. So the online assignment is actually to write a job description. If you've taken 150 with me either this fall or you took it with another staff member in years prior, you most likely already wrote a job description for a teaching staff. This is going to be the same assignment, but if you already took 150, you've already written a teaching staff job description, please write another kind. So write one for a support teacher. If you're lucky enough to write a support teacher, what do you think a janitor or a cook or an administrative assistant would need to have for a job description? And then if you haven't, this is your first time writing it, go ahead and please write one for a teaching staff position, either a full teacher or an aide, assistant, something like that. Most likely what the program that you're already working in, similar to what you are doing, but you are thinking on your own within a specific template that I give you. What are the types of things? So I'm going to give you a template. So you're talking a brief job description, so no more than 3 sentences. I'm looking for a bus driver who can also be our after school program, and then the essential job functions. So what is the key responsibilities of this position? It's most likely going to be supervision of children. The ability to, what do they need to be able to do in order to achieve their job? So in order to have good education for the children in your program, they need to have an ability to understand developmentally appropriate practice or understanding of child development throughout the lifespan, something like that. Knowledge of, and then also what parts of child development are relevant to the job, minimum qualifications, what educational professional experience must they have. So how long have they been working in the field? What education do they have? What permit do they have if you're a specifically state-funded program? And then that would also be license or permit required. And then any special requirements, like a support staff would need to have a food handlers, a driver needs to have a license. You could also put CPR and first aid if that was something that you were looking for. So essential job functions, I'm going to define that a little bit more. But once again, I'm going to give you a template online and you're going to fill this stuff in. So once again, if I ever give you a template, the part in red is what you actually fill out. So you're thinking about your program, you are a teacher or you're hiring for a teacher, what are the essential job functions that this person needs to fulfill? Or if you've already written one for a teacher, a support staff, a management staff, an administrative staff, something like that, something other than teaching staff that you could write a job description for in order to add to your body of knowledge or your body of paperwork that you have on file in order to run a really great program. It's unusual that people will give you feedback each week when you're in the management field. You usually have to go and hunt somebody down and be like, hey, can you read this for me? So please take advantage of the fact that I'm here and that each week I read through all of the work that you give and I try to give you feedback and support on it. So please reach and kind of push yourself to do a little bit more so that I can give you some really great feedback so that you actually, when you are a director or a teacher in the field, you have a body of work to draw on that will hopefully make your lives easier. What's a necessary skill? So a skill is an observable set of learned competences. So what is a competency that a teacher or a support staff needs to have, and how are they going to do this skill to perform their job? So there's a couple different kinds of skills. So we're looking at mental skills, so analytical, abstract. We're looking at physical, being able to run after a toddler, to lift up a toddler, an infant, to be able to see children playing on the playground. Then interpersonal, you know, there's a lot of counseling in this job sometimes. We deal with some very difficult families. We deal with some very stressful families that are going through really heavy things. I've had parents die. From breast cancer, I've had parents be arrested, be actively in prison, call the cops on them because they are high on drugs. I mean, I've had some hard things, and there's a certain amount of counseling that goes into that, or that ability to work with the family as a team. And to work with others as a team. And then supervising. So if you're doing a management thing, what kind of interpersonal supervising are you looking for? And then language and communication, the ability to write and to think. And then mental would kind of be your child development knowledge and things like that. So I also mentioned specific characteristics that you might like at, and I kind of wrote down very general ones. They should like children. If they don't get the sense, and in one of my jobs, the best thing that I did was I had the ability to have them go in the classroom for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then we did an observation afterwards. It was a good screening for us. Sometimes the teachers would come in and they would be like, no. this person like didn't seem to like kids at all. Or they'd be like, yeah, we loved her. She was so much fun. She like taught us a brand new game or gave us a great lesson plan idea or something like that. So they would come and find me and tell me like, this person is a no, 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 or this person was awesome. And that added some information to my ability to screen them through the interview as well. The ability to work with parents, you might not like parents, or you might be really quiet, you might be really shy, but if you have the ability to verbally and then in a written form communicate with them, that is what we're looking for. Sometimes parents can be difficult, but you do have to provide the basics of child development and be polite. You need to have reading, writing, and verbal communication ability as well. And then you need to understand the importance of teamwork. And then part of the interview process is what your team is like. So describing how it is. Are you somebody who has a really close-knit team and it's a small center and you meet up for barbecues once a month, or you potluck or something like that? Maybe that's not this person's jam. So it's a two-way street when you interview with somebody. So maybe this is not what that person is looking for. They don't want to be that way. Would it be difficult for them to work in a situation like that? Or would they just be like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to come to your barbecues, but I can still do my job just fine. Knowing what they're getting into and how your center kind of conducts itself and what the workplace is like might help that person make a decision if they want to work with you. And then also upfront letting them know how you run your center, what your vision for your center is. So I would typically talk for a couple minutes. I would say, this is the program that I run. This is what we do. This is the amount of training that you do. This is the staff workshops that I make you take part in. You get paid, but you have to do a Saturday every quarter, or you have to do a early morning staff meeting once a month, something like that. So that person kind of knows what they're getting into. And then if I had any weird things about my program. So at one school, it was the military, we had a 2-week rule when it came to vacation. So even if you had accrued 6 months worth of time off, you could only ever take 2 weeks at a time. That was a little bit unusual, and we tried to explain it to people so that they wouldn't be accruing 3 weeks or 1 month, wanting to go home, maybe see family out of the state or out of the country, and then it's going to be a real problem that we only grant leave 2 weeks at a time. So the weird things about you, the cool things about you, the workplace that you have, explaining it to them so that they can kind of make that decision if this is going to be a good fit for them. And then also being able to gauge if you think they will be a good fit with your program. Another big one that I think is the willingness to continue to learn. Maybe not to get permits, but maybe not to take classes at child development, but to take workshops and things that you like. Go to Lakeshore on Saturdays to learn something new. I think that keeps us fresh, and most people really like it. And in most cases, you don't have a problem with people wanting to learn more because it helps them in the classroom. But that was something that I always prioritized, and I wanted to let people know about my workplace and how learning was really important to us. I do want to talk about some things about job functions and the ADA. So the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and my disclaimer is I am not a lawyer. I've never trained as a lawyer. I'm not a human resource expert. I've never trained or gone to school as a human resource expert. This is stuff that I have learned from working within our field. So the Americans with Disability Act requires that the employers identify essential job functions. So that's why this is important, and I kind of talked about it in our online thing. So an essential function of a position is critical in evaluating the qualifications and abilities of an applicant. This checklist, so there's typically a checklist that comes with it, is used to identify the physical effort required in performing the essential duties of this job. So brainstorm for a minute. What are the physical effort that is required in performing the essential duties of the job? Most of it is lifting. That is something that can be difficult for some of our people. Are there possible accommodations like they have a diagnosed and verified arthritis in their back? They just cannot lift. They can bend down, they can reach, they can turn, they can reach high, that type of stuff. But lifting anything more than 30 pounds is really difficult, and they shouldn't be doing it over a long period of time. Is there an accommodation that you can be making in the classroom? I can't answer that for you, but most likely you can if you have a wide age group. Like they could be in school age or something like that, where school agers weigh 50 to 75 pounds. Nobody should really be lifting them. I have, somebody broke their leg on the monkey bars, and I did carry them. But I wouldn't expect my teachers to do that. As a director, I did that, and if it was really hard, I could have had somebody else help me in order to do that. So are there possible accommodations that you could be making? Maybe you only run infant classrooms and they can't read and they can't pick up more than 10 pounds. Is that an accommodation that you could probably make in a classroom? Every time there was a diaper change, this person couldn't lift an infant. Would you have to send a float in, or you yourself come in order to do all the diaper changes for this person? It's really up to you. It's up to you and a lawyer in order to make those ideas about possible accommodations, because this also gets into the ideas of being hurt on the job, workman's compensation, and things like this. So what I'm really talking about is, what do you need from somebody? What is an essential job function when it comes to the physical nature of the job? I have worked with a wide variety of people who, as adults, who are employees of me, who have had various disabilities or special needs. I've worked with auditory processing, and that's why I'm such a big proponent in meeting the needs of all learners, because this specific person just really couldn't listen to me. This would be really difficult for her. She needs videos, she needs visual, she needs to move, she needs to hear it, she needs to look at it, she needs to feel it. That was the best for her. So when we would teach her something new, or when we would have a workshop, it was always kind of all the multiple intelligences that we could throw at it in order to help her, but sometimes it just required a bit of time and a bit more effort within the classroom. She did have a lot of experience under her belt already, and so she could draw on that in addition to this incredible love for children. So whatever accommodations we did have to provide for her were made up for the fact that she was an amazing caregiver. I've also worked with people who have braces, who need braces and walking. In our preschool classroom and school age classroom, it was no problem. They had cerebral palsy. Getting down on the floor and getting back up was not a hardship. She typically sat on a chair that were scattered around the classroom. She could get down on the floor and back up. It just took a little bit more time, but it really worked fine. All we had to do was widen the aisles. So some of our centers, like our math and science center, were a little bit small. In order to give her access, we had to move things around so they were bigger so that she could get through with her crutches. But once again, a fantastic child care provider who really didn't need that many accommodations when it came down to it. And then I also had somebody who was hard of hearing, who had two, not implants, but hearing aids behind her. Any new teachers or adults, like parents who came into the classroom, she had a spiel that she told them, that if her back was turned, she might not be able to hear you if you were talking to her. So please get in front of her and talk with her so that she can have a serious conversation with you, hear you, as well as read lips. You might be wondering how that worked in classrooms where, a bang and you turn around and you see a bunch of 4-year-olds. We really didn't have an issue with it. She could hear a lot of vibrations and she could hear. She just was a little bit hard of hearing, and she just wanted to make sure when she talked with parents that they weren't coming in and expecting hi, how are you? And her back is turned. She really needs to get closer to you and have a conversation with you. We never had any supervision issues or anything like that. So there are a lot of accommodations that we can make. Sometimes there are not, but understanding what the physical qualifications for the job are is really important when it comes to the ADA and your job descriptions. So you've written a job description. That is your online assignment for this week. There's a template on Canvas. Whatever is read, you fill out. Come back to these slides if you need to think more about essential job functions, knowledge, learning. What are you looking for in a staff member? But you can advertise now. So take that job description and probably take the first 2 to 3 sentences that you've written for your job description, tweak it a little bit, and then put it online at LinkedIn or Indeed, at community colleges. I like to advertise universities, networking, word of mouth. You need to write, it's really short, but it's informative. So it's part of the job description. So what are those key responsibilities? The ability to supervise, Class C driver's license, anything like that. And then give yourself a little bit of information about you. So for my job description for my bus driver, I'm looking for a part-time split shift position, and we are a NIAC accredited center. We need an energetic and fun part-time school-age teacher who can drive children to and from school daily. We support your educational goals and provide educational reimbursement and healthcare benefits after 3 months. So who am I? What kind of awesome things can I offer you? And what do I need specifically from you? It's split shift and it's part-time. Not everybody can do that. If you are a working parent, that's going to be really difficult for you. You're probably not even going to want to apply for it. Or you might want to apply hoping that they have other positions, but letting them know off the bat that you can't work that schedule. And then how to apply. And then if you need references or something like that, you might want to include that as well. So screen, So I typically like to do 3 piles when I'm screening. So you have the job application. It should be the same. You can buy a really standardized template online for a really minimal fee, or you can make your own, but it should be the exact same thing so that you have this exact same kind of information. That's really important from an equal opportunity standpoint, is that you've given all applicants an equal opportunity to apply for your job. So it is important that it is fairly the same. In this part, it's equal, exactly. And then after the screening process, the interview process, it's basically almost the same. I would always ask the same questions. I might go a little bit above and beyond. So if they're telling me that they have a master's in psychology, okay, tell me about that. What kind of child development classes did you actually do? Do you have the units necessary in order to work in the classroom? Something like that. But they started off the same so that I could prove that I had given everybody an equal opportunity to interview for the job and then possibly to be hired for the job. It's an issue if somebody could allege that there's discrimination. So if there's only one type of person in your center, we are primarily female dominated as a field. But if it was only white people who with blonde hair and green eyes who were between the ages of 25 and 35, were 5'7" and weighed 120 pounds, you could be accused of having, a very specific look and a very specific type of person that you are hiring for, and that would be discrimination against people who are 5'1", have brown hair and brown eyes, something like that. It's an issue in other fields as well, but within this field, if you have a specific type that you're always looking for, that is illegal. You need to give everybody an equal opportunity to interview for your position and to be hired for your position. So with 3 piles of completed job applications, your applications are exactly the same, then you're going to have 3 piles. They meet the minimum requirements and more. They meet some of the minimum requirements and then eliminated immediately because they don't meet any or very few of the requirements. So if you need a permit and somebody doesn't have a permit and is not even close to being able to get that permit, they have 3 units, and you need somebody with 24, very nicely tell them, hey, in a few years, once you have your permit, come back and I'd love to interview then, but you're at least 2 to 3 years away from kind of achieving what I need. So, this isn't going to work right now. I'll keep your name on file. Then some, but not all of the minimum requirements. So once again, if you liked the characteristics or you liked the person, but they didn't have that driver's license that you needed, could you go back and could you work with them or give them time in order to do that, something like that, and then meet all the minimum requirements and more. This is definitely somebody you're going to want to interview. Then contact candidates, set them up interviews, do it over a few days in order to stay as fresh as possible. So it's not like my worst days are like 8 hours of just ongoing interviews. Sometimes that happens in jobs like at Palomar. You're doing it for a really long time because it's a very standardized process. The higher that you go, or if you go into programs like Palomar that are state funded or government funded, it's very, very standardized by HR, what you do, what you fill out. When you get interviewed, like all this type of stuff, we have a little bit more freedom than that. If possible, set up a panel or at least 2 people to interview as well. And this goes back to that equal opportunity so that you had 2 people asking similar or the same questions to that person, so that you could say, well, we were both there and we both asked these questions and they were equal and that they were the same. It doesn't, if you're just the only management person, you're the only director, have an experienced staff person or a mentor or something. Or if you're hiring for a kitchen, have one of your kitchen people. If you're hiring an aide for the kitchen, have the kitchen person there because she knows, well, at least in my case, she knew a lot better about the kitchen and what she needed in somebody than I did. And then use a similar question or the same questions for all. I always use the same questions, and I'll talk about the questions that we can ask, but they were the same. And then if I needed additional information, I would write out what I asked and then that person's interview so that it looked on paper really equal. And it was equal, and then it started out the same. I don't know why that didn't. Okay, so interview questions. There's open-ended, tell us about yourself. Everybody hates that one, it's really hard. But it gives us a general background about you. Hi, I'm a mom of 3. I work at Palomar and Cal State. I live in Oceanside, blah, 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 blah. Ways to evaluate qualifications, to describe the type of curriculum you enjoy and how you lesson plan. So that will give you information. If they're like, I don't know, I just write ideas on a Post-it note, like whatever. Or tell me about developing appropriate practice. oh, infants, they're so annoying. Something like that. You can really start to look at the quality of person and the information and the knowledge and the minimum qualifications that they have by the questions that you ask, if they are well thought out questions. And then I love scenarios. So depending on the age group, so a 6-year-old is upset. This would be something that I've asked my school age part-time split person. Playing checkers, he lost, he flipped the board, now none of the other children want to play with him. How could you help the child in the classroom? What are ways you could help them in the future? How could you set up your environment to be more successful for the child? That type of stuff. With an infant and toddler, give them a scenario, somebody bites, or there's an angry parent, that type of stuff. That will give you a really good information about scenarios of how in the moment they would handle something, because you can't be with that person, and other teachers can't be with that person throughout the day. So equal opportunity in interviews. Interviews should be the same or similar to allow for equal opportunity for all candidates to be interviewed. Can a reasonable accommodation be given if you have physical characteristics or qualifications that a person needs to achieve and they're telling you that you can't do them? Can a reasonable accommodation be given? Then they need equal opportunity to interview and hire. So if you're screening and you are not choosing people, why are you not choosing them? That should be a relevant and important reason why you chose not to, most likely because they didn't meet the minimum qualification. Once again, using my example as before, it can't be because they have brown hair and you're looking for somebody with blonde hair. It has to be something based on those minimum qualifications or those essential job functions that you have illustrated. And that's why you're writing it, is because I want you to have a great job description so that when you are looking for that person, you can prove why or why not you didn't choose this person. If you need any more information about equal opportunity, and the larger you get and the bigger your nonprofit does, the more you will have a human resources person who knows about this, or you have a consultant or a lawyer or something like that who can support you in this as well. Because once again, I'm not a lawyer. I only give you the basics from years working in the field. So interviews go both ways. What do you want to tell the candidate about your program? What kind of program you have? Once again, if you're a Reggio and they're academic, that might be a mismatch of philosophy styles unless that person was wanting to make the shift. What your job description is, and then more than that, what is your job contract? This is more like how much we pay, your specific hours, that type of stuff. A ground for dismissal and termination. I like to people know that California is an at-will state. You can be terminated for any reason at any time, and this is state law, and that's always within my job contract as well. What are my benefits? Why do you want to work for me? I have great benefits. Or unfortunately, I'm a new program, I'm fledgling, I have not gotten off the ground. I would really like to provide benefits, but they are not in the cards right now. Letting people know ahead of time, if they're looking for health care and you right now cannot provide it, that is something that they're going to be able to need to know. Or if you pay a lot and you don't have benefits, and that will disqualify people from getting Medi-Cal or something with the amount of money that they make, that's a consideration that people need to weigh, and they need to know that ahead of time. So this isn't something that you would specifically tell them in an interview, but if you really like them, you might have them come back for a second interview, and this might be information that you might go over. And then a probationary period, if you have it, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. What are the probates? What is the parts of probation? So how does it go so long? When do you get off of it? Do you have to do an portfolio or something to get out of it? Does the amount of money that they make change? That type of thing. So this is this type of stuff, especially if you're hiring for a big position, in a second interview or a phone call or something like this. This needs to be described to the candidate, and this is something that you need to be able to know. A lot of times I'll see people and they will just hire somebody and they're not even really specifically sure. They just know they need a body in the classroom, but they don't know what they can provide. All right, so evaluate. So interview and evaluate candidates as a group or committee, an assistant director, a mentor teacher, team teachers, giving input and helping you evaluate as well if it's only down to you, or maybe you're lucky enough to have a management team. They need to meet the minimum qualifications of the need that you have. And then you also need to evaluate their place within a team. Are they going to work well with the team? Is the workplace set up so that they can be easily integrated in? So you have to have some self-awareness and self-evaluation of your own program. Do you welcome newcomers? Are you a bunch of experienced people, and sometimes it's hard for new people to come in? What changes can we make to be more welcoming? And then do we think that if as welcoming as we are, this person would be okay? And then once again, it comes down to the need in your program. So what kind of need do you need met within your program, and can this person fulfill that need to the best of their ability and more so than any other candidates? What makes them stand apart? What characteristics do they have? What knowledge do they have? What permit do they have? What background do they have that makes them a good fit for your program? So not just doing it willy-nilly because you need a warm, breathing body in the classroom, but being a little bit more critical, a little bit more analytical, and having a really high set of standards will help you build a quality program. So hire, inform the candidates of their selection or not. I told this in 150, but I'll tell it again. I was applying for a position in the county government in Riverside, and it was a pretty big bump up for me. So I would definitely be going from like a director to a middle management in an office. It was kind of like a Title V type program, but I got it into a second interview, but I didn't get the job, and the boss called me and he told me why. And it sounds kind of mean, I guess, but it was fantastic. So he told me that I was a really strong candidate, but this was the reason that I didn't get the job. And this is what I needed to learn more about, and this is how I can make myself a stronger applicant in the future. He said he would hold on to my information, but he encouraged me to apply in a couple more years once I had really worked in this specific kind of category again, and he would love to hear from me again. So it really, really helped me. And if you have somebody who just misses the cutoff, like they don't have the permit, giving them a call and telling them, we really liked you, you're fantastic. Once you get that permit, please give us a call or apply for the next round of interviews. We would love to probably interview you again because you are a really strong candidate. That gives people information about why they didn't get it and how they can better themselves. After you have hired them, you need to have a job contract in writing, and you also need to verbally go over it. So they need to sign that they read and understand, and then the employer signs and dates. The at will is really important, how much money they make, benefits, probation periods, anything that can cut down on possible confusion or any issues before employment begins. We won't be doing a job contract. Next week, we'll be going over termination policies and procedures. So if you want me to give you an example of a job contract, just email me, or maybe I'll put it on Canvas so everybody can see it. This is what it looks like, though. It's your duties, pay, hours, their employee name signed and dated, your name signed and dated. You keep the original and you put it in the file. You can have an online lawyer firm draft one for a really minimal fee, and this kind of helps you make sure that it's compliant with both state, county, and federal laws having to do with minimum wage, stuff like that. But typically this is an example of it: additional hours of work and the rate of pay. So if you work overtime, that type of stuff, when you'll be working, how many breaks you'll have, what's your main place of work, what duties do you have. It's typically the supervision, the health and safety, like those basic things that we need as far as licensing, that it's an at-will employment in the state of California, so you can be fired for any time, at any time for any reason, that type of thing. Then their date of birth, telephone, all that kind of relevant stuff. So all this goes on a job contract, and it would be really easy for a lawyer or for yourself to buy a template that you could use online for like a really minimal fee. So orientations and probation, I do like talking about this because one of my jobs was a lot of orientation. I would say about 40% of my job was doing orientations for people. I taught them first aid and CPR because I was in American Heart Association. We had really specific modules. And you're very basic, though. An orientation or the probationary period is when an employee is having the printed out procedures and policies read, understood, and signed. How you do this, though, really changes with your program. A lot of people, it's learn on the go. I want to shift that, I think, a little bit, and I'll go over ways that we could kind of work in a week and really train somebody. And having experienced employees help train will help you with delegation as well. And then informally and formally monitor progress in the first few months as well. And that's why we typically have a probation period. But even if you don't have a probation period, making sure that they're settled in, that they like the workplace, they understand how to lesson plan, they're working with families really well, that type of stuff to make sure that they're a good fit for your program. HR and management most are determine the probation period, and that's why it's nice if you're a large enough group that you have HRs that they can help with all this type of stuff. And they can help with like the bigger like job contracty stuff, and then you can really just work worry about training them and having them understand the classroom stuff that HR doesn't get. They do the bigger kind of disciplinary stuff and things like that so that you can focus on the classrooms. But if you don't have the luxury of that, and I do want to have maybe shift the idea of learn on the go, you just got hired, hey, go break this person, or on your second day being asked to do that. But maybe there could be an extra week. Sometimes it's not possible, somebody quits, and you literally just need a body in the classroom. If that's not the case, please consider doing something like this. Obviously, that fits your needs. This is just an example, although you are free to use it if you want. So day one, in the morning, we go over the personnel file and the employee handbook. So I'm talking about supervision of children, how you never leave them unsupervised, playground issues with supervision, all that type of stuff. So like the really key and important stuff that somebody would need to know and what your expectations are for it. In the afternoon, they're going to shadow a floating teacher, and they're going to meet all the staff. So by doing breaks, they go in the classroom, they meet the entire staff group. Even if they're my infant and toddler teacher, I'd still like them to meet all the staff and know how the classrooms work. On day two, I have my health, safety, and food handling. So they are going to watch some videos about food handling and safety and health. We'll go over licensing regulations. We'll go over literally, they will sanitize a table. They will observe a lunchtime so that they can see what family style dining is. And then in the PM, I'll have them shadow the janitor and cook, and maybe a specific teacher who's known for being great in the classroom when it comes to these issues. So the janitor, if we're lucky enough to have one, tell them how they want laundry done or where you should put poopy diapers, those types of like procedures that janitors have in order to make their life as easy as possible. And same with the cook. So how does the cook want all the forks put, stuff like that. It's also a chance for me, if you are lucky enough to have support staff, you need to support your support staff. So I always talked about how important teamwork was, and this is your classroom team and your teachers and all that type of stuff. But I also had a caveat that if I hear that you are being disrespectful or not polite to my janitor or my cook, that we are going to have some significant issues as far as management and you. I would tell them, one program had 350 kids. 4 people were cooking for that many children. Do you want to provide 2 snacks, a lunch, and a breakfast for that many children? That is a very hard job, and you need to respect them, and you need to do what they ask within reason to make their lives easier so that they can continue to cut 500 apples in a day or something like that they were doing so that we can support them. And then typically there's a specific teacher who's great at family style dining or who is a great cleaner but isn't like overboard with it, something like that where that person can support them in learning those kind of procedures in the classroom. Then day 3, in the morning, we'll talk about working with children, developmentally appropriate practice, lesson plans, all that kind of fun stuff. They'll then perform a hands-on observation of the children in the classroom that they might be going into, and then I'll do a treasure hunt, like where are the lockers? If you have an issue, who should you talk to? Where do you put dirty diapers, whatever it was in the classroom or in the program that was kind of weird. I had like a little treasure hunt where they would have to go around and do stuff. And this would also give them a chance to meet more staff members that they would be working on. If you don't do a treasure hunt, you could provide a hands-on observation. So they have to go and do an objective observation. Then you look at it and you talk about DRDPs and what observations and portfolios look like. Or if you're not doing DRDPs, you're doing Bright Wheel or whatever these new app programs are, being able to work within that kind of situation and giving them some help as if it's new to them. Then day 4 is working with adults, both families and the team that you'll be working with. And then you go in the classroom of your own. So you get to start to know the parents and the kids on your 4th day. So hopefully you feel good about the program as a whole. You've learned a lot of our policies and procedures, and you're signing things this whole time. So I've broken, the first day is all this really important stuff, and then every day after that is like the key procedures and rules and stuff like that they're signing, and I'm adding to their personnel file as the week goes on. In the classroom of their own, they're getting to say goodbye to families, they're learning who they are, they're introducing themselves, or the team is introducing them. And then day 5 is any kind of loose ends, things that I want to wrap up, or if they're totally new to DRDP, this is going over more of it so that they feel better about it. Then I talk about ethics and leadership, signing a code of conduct, talking about gossip and teamwork and stuff like that. And then again in the PM or the afternoon after nap, they're back in their classroom as their own. So then hopefully Monday they can start fresh, they've been exposed to the entire program as a whole, all of the people who work there, they know our workplace and what it's like, and then hopefully they know enough of the children and enough of our procedures that they can kind of jump in with both feet and have had things explained to them rather than having to kind of learn on the go, which can be sporadic and it cannot be consistent. You could get health and safety, but you could miss out on food handling. So your employee handbook, it's a comprehensive employee handbook with copies of your policies, procedures, and rules. You typically have the employees sign a last page and you keep it in your file to indicate that they have signed all of those things and they understand what it is or they've received the employee handbook. I put some good links here as well, but if you were just to Google employee handbook on YouTube, you will have like 150 human resource consultants or groups giving you information about what employee handbooks should and should not do. In the 150 that is taught in the fall, this is actually the long-term project. So right now, all these things that you're writing go towards your operational file. In 150, this goes through kind of like you kind of make an employee handbook. So maybe you only need this class in order to work as a management in your field. You might want to consider doing the 150 in the fall. I'm not sure if I'm teaching it or not next year. Somebody else might be teaching it. But it's a great class. Even if you don't have to have it, I would recommend it as you get to write a lot more information as well. So just consider that it is taught in the fall as well. You do need it for your permits though, for most of you. And then your personnel file. So this is the community care licensing website. So it's licensing form 311A, and this gives you all of the files that you need to have on hand for both children and for employees. So really what you need is sign and explain copies of all employee policies and procedures, and then you need to kind of track TB, CPR, first aid, that type of things that kind of need to be due on a regular basis. I would just put them in Excel, and so then it would, if they're due every 2 years for first aid and CPR, then it would tell me at 1 year and 9 months. So then I have a 3-month warning that this person needs CPR and first aid, so that they can either go get it or I can provide it. And then I would give myself a warning 1 week ahead as well. Like, no joke, go get your TB test right now because it still has to be read. So that was kind of how, like, especially if I had 40 to 80 staff members, that's a lot of people to make sure that all of these things are when they are due and when I need to maintain compliance with those. Let me go back. I don't know why I wasn't doing, sorry. I don't know why I wasn't doing this, but my files made sense for me and they were good at what I needed. So in the moment, what I needed to look at, but they were not good for licensing, and I don't know why I ever changed that. Last semester, a bunch of people brought up to me that they either had, you know, the file that you open, and one side was just what licensing needed to see as far as children and staff, and then the other stuff was all the stuff that we needed, like all the extra policies and procedures, because licensing only needs to see one part. Or it was actually a file, like a folder that you brought out, and they had all, like, give them this, and this was everything that they needed for all of their staff, and then give them this, and this was everything that they needed for children. So it was 2 different ways that they could do it, either go individually through each one or just bring it out, and I don't know why I never did that. I mean, it made sense for me, and I guess most of the time it's for me so that I can make sure that I have all of the children's files and the employee files as I needed them. But we also need to consider that when licensing comes in, they only need to see a smaller amount of paperwork than we actually need. And that was a fantastic kind of hack that a bunch of people had said last semester, and I don't know why I ever did it. Make paperwork easy for our licensing to get through so that licensing can get through with your center and leave. I know that most of us, I assume, are in the North County of San Diego. If you have met your new Riverside analyst, because we all moved to the Riverside branch, if you're in North County, please shoot me an email and tell me how it went, how the transition process is, because here in Oceanside, and the people that I know that are still in the centers have not met with their analysts yet, and I would love to hear about the experience if anybody wanted to share or has met theirs. So volunteers, you really just need TB and immunizations and a background check. That's really the only requirement. I think that they should sign the important relevant documents and be trained for the room or the area that they were volunteer in. So depending if they are a grandma who just wants to love on infants, telling them about that they're not going to do diaper changes. they can feed children, but only when somebody, a staff member is sitting at the table. It's your own decisions about volunteers and how you're going to keep the children safe. But you might want to have them sign additional information about supervision. They can never be left alone with children, even if the teacher really needs to take a pee, or confidentiality. They can't go home and gossip to their husband about these kids, or stuff like that. So I'm going to give an example with a senior citizen. So a senior citizen gardener, master gardener wants to help out in our gardening program. Yes, we're going to love that. So they need to have their TB and immunization records in addition to emergency contact form in their file. So if they were to fall down or get hurt, how am I going to get a hold of their husband or their senior citizen facility or something like that so I can keep them safe? Then they need to be screened by live scan before they can start volunteering. So then the gardener will also sign forms indicating his understanding of the center policy on unsupervised children, that volunteers can never be left alone with children. They need to know the basics of child abuse, and that I would prefer if they ever had any concerns that they come directly to a management or a mentor teacher and let us know about it. And then the basics of developmentally appropriate practice, how they're working with a large age group, and our toddlers are going to be a little bit wild in the garden. If that's going to be too much for them, they can garden at other times. Maybe they just want to work with preschoolers and school age. That's easier for a senior citizen. That's okay, but I need to know what they want from me so that I can make this situation good for them. Or maybe they want toddlers. Maybe they want nuts. They want 50 toddlers in a classroom. They think it's hysterical. They want to teach them about porn, whatever it is. And those school agers are way too boring for them. Whatever it is, because you want these volunteers, you want somebody to help out in your garden, or maybe they don't even want to be with kids. Maybe they just want to weed. That would be fine too, but I would still want them to know all this information. And then any other relevant information, but typically it's that supervision, confidentiality, and child abuse are the really important things that you need your volunteer to understand. So in conclusion, hiring for your specific program and ensuring goodness of fit will help build your program and your teams, and it's going to support the quality of your program. So we talk about goodness of fit when it comes with temperament and caregivers, and making sure the child has a goodness of fit with their caregiver. It's kind of the same way when you're hiring somebody new. Are they going to be a good fit for all the needs that you have in your program? And then vice versa, are they going to be able to be welcomed into your program and deal well with the workplace that they have? So they need to make a decision, and you need to make a decision. One of my jobs, I got the job. It was the second interview, and I eventually took it, but I actually did ask, because all of the interviews had been in a second location, so in an office building. I never even saw the center or the kids. And it was very vague when they would talk about philosophy and stuff like that. So I was like, I actually just want to go talk to the center director and see the program. And they were kind of taken aback, but I was like, this is a good job. This is a benefited job. This is somewhere I can see myself for a couple of years. I want to make sure that this is a place where I want to work. So I went and I talked, and I knew how much money I would be making in my shift at that point, but I just wanted to see the center. I wanted to know what I was going to get into. Everybody was super friendly, and I had a lot of fun that day, and I immediately accepted the job. But maybe the philosophy didn't fit with what I think children learn at. Would I have been miserable working in a program that I don't agree with how they run it? Something like that. So you need to make sure that there's goodness of fit, so that person can be easily incorporated within your workplace, and you can provide a good experience for them as well. And they will also meet the needs of the educational kind of service that you are providing for these children. And then also a more standardized, but at the very least adequate training program for your staff as they onboard, as they come into your program, will help them acclimate so that they can know people, know your programs, know your rules, procedures, and policies. So that they know it from the very beginning, so that they're not inadvertently making mistakes, and you can have more of a seamless transition, especially for our little kids that have issues with routines or transitions. Having somebody new who they can't manipulate or seems to know what's going on can help in the classroom with those types of things. So to do this week, we are going to have a group discussion on personnel procedures. You're going to have a couple of different readings or resources that I'll put on Canvas as well. And then you will also do your online assignment. Once again, it is a template that you are going to be doing as a job description. So that's what you're going to be doing this week. It is spring break week. So I'm going to open this on March 26th, and it will be open all the way through, I believe, April 8th. So this is the first part of the personnel management 2-week series. You'll have 2 weeks in order to do it because it will be spring break. Thanks so much and have a great spring break, guys.